afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sharing space with us today. My name is Elena Querosen Gonzalez. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm an assistant curator here at MoMA PS1. We are in Homeroom, a space that amplifies and celebrates the works of collectives, organizations, artists, and activists that are connected to PS1's public programming and community allyship initiatives. For the past 2 months, we have collaborated with Black Trans Liberation founder Queen Jean to transform Homeroom into a sacred space of affirmations and offerings. This space centers Black, trans, two-spirit, and gender nonconforming people. Today, it is my honor to introduce Queen Jean, along with Black trans leaders who will be in discussion today to mark the closing of the activation. Raquel Willis is a Black transgender activist, award-winning writer, and media strategist dedicated to elevating the dignity of marginalized people, particularly Black transgender people. She has held groundbreaking posts throughout her career, including Director of Communications for the Miss Foundation, Executive Director of Out Magazine, and National Organizer for the Transgender Law Center. In 2018, she founded Black Trans Circles, a project of TLC focused on developing the leadership of Black trans women in the South and Midwest by creating healing justice spaces to work through oppression-based trauma and incubating community organizing efforts to address anti-trans murder and violence. During her time at Out, she published the Trans Obituaries Project to highlight the epidemic of violence against trans women of color and developed a community-sourced 13-point framework to end the epidemic. This project won a GLAAD Media Award. Raquel is the thought leader on gender, race, and intersectionality. Welcome. Marquis Vilson Valenciaga, he, him, is an actor and activist. He is also a long-standing member, participant, and leader in New York's underground ballroom scene, and is currently a member of the House of Valenciaga. In 2018, he received the Octavia St. Laurent Trans Activist Award, the Masquerade Blueprint Award, and was acknowledged as a trans man icon. In 2011, Marquis was given the Eric Christian Bazaar Award for his work with the Safe Horizons Street Work Project as a sexual health coordinator, doing both pre- and post-counseling, as well as HIV testing, focusing on youth that is unhoused. Gia Love, she, her, is a Black trans woman from New York City. She is a model, an actress, and activist that centers her work around putting big-bodied Black and trans women at the forefront of every conversation. Gia was featured in the TV show Pose and is the star of the Teddy Award-winning documentary Kiki, a coming-of-age story about youth in the ballroom scene. Her work in the house and ballroom scene has encompassed community activism, HIV and STI prevention services for at-risk LGBTQ+ youth, and research. Gia also founded the celebration of Black Trans Women Cookout, a summertime event that centers and celebrates Black trans women by creating a joyous experience for the community. Thank you, Gia. B. Hawk Snipes, they, them, is an actor and activist from the Bronx, New York. B fell in love with being a creative while attending Fiorello LaGuardia High School for Art and Performing Arts. After high school, they attended FIT, College for Fashion Design, starred in the hit MTV show Friend Zone, and started a music group called OFU. They are on the board of Black Trans Femmes in the Arts and are known for their unique style, gracing different fashion magazines and style blogs. B. Hawk is also an actor featured on the hit FX show Pose. They are always working on more creative projects to diversify and inspire the world with their unique talents in TV, fashion, and music. Thank you. Welcoming Devin Michael Lowe, he, him, is a Black first-generation Jamaican American and queer man of transgender experience, originally from Houston, Texas, now based in New York City. as well as being the founder and CEO of the Black Trans Travel Fund, a mutual aid initiative that pays for car ride services for Black trans women to be able to travel safely and free harassment. Devin is also an actor and media producer, creating content that highlights the lived experiences of queer, transgender, and gender nonconforming folk, with a special focus on Black folks and other communities of color. Devin has been the lead facilitator for multiple transmasculine support groups throughout New York City that focuses on self-care, political education, and redefining and centering healthy masculinity, as well as co-directing general LGBTQ+ support groups. He is currently a community media organizer for Black Trans Media and helps to run their virtual support spaces for Black trans people across the country. Miss Cayenne Derosa, she, her, is a compassionate powerhouse performer, activist, organizer, community-based research, and public figure in the trans and sex worker rights movements. As the founder and executive director of GLITZ, she works to provide holistic care to LGBTQ sex workers while serving on the following boards: SWOP, Behind Bars, Caribbean Equality Project, SOAR Institute, and New York TAG. As an international public speaker, her presentations include the Desiree Alliance, Creating Change, Sister Son, Harm Reduction Coalition, and the International AIDS Conferences, and now Pride on FX. Cayenne has published features in GQ, Vogue, Time, Atmos, ID, and many other publications. At the present time, Cayenne is continuing to build her Leadership Academy and Medical Center and combined housing units in Queens, New York, building sustainability for the community like no other. GLITZ was able to raise enough money to buy a $2 million, 12-unit residential building that is a free, safe place for Black trans folks to live. Thank you, Cayenne. Tatiana Fairman, she, her, is the founder and CEO of Bridges for Life, which works to help teens and young adults on the street and in foster care become responsible, self-sufficient, confident, and educated adults. Bridges for Life provides housing, preparation for adulthood, prevention services, and assists young people in negotiating aging out services within the foster care system. Tatiana is also a member of the National LGBTQ Worker Center's New York City chapter, serving on the center's national board as its New York liaison. A community activist since 2008, Tatiana has been a community follow-up worker at Housing Works, a recovery coach and patient navigator at the Alliance for Positive Change, amongst other initiatives, as well as speaking at the presidential debate in 2008 for Barack Obama. Tatiana runs a transgender support group weekly at the Alliance for Positive Change and Bridges for Life. Now, last but not least, please join me in welcoming Queen Jean, an activist, celebrated costume and set designer, and storyteller. She is the founder of Black Trans Liberation, an organization that aims to end homelessness within the trans population by providing access and resources that empower and celebrate the transgender, non-conforming community. Black Trans Liberation is committed to dismantling the current 35-year life expectancy of Black trans people and abolishing systemic oppression. Thank you all for sharing space today.
Thank you, everyone. Truly, this is magical. This is so beautiful. I could not have ever imagined being able to hold space with people that I admire, sisters and brothers that I look up to, that I love. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I cannot say thank you enough. Toni Morrison says that one of the greatest things that you can tell someone is thank you. So before we leave, before this, it doesn't come to an end. It continues to evolve. But truly, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for your time, your space, your magic, the way that you show up in this world. Thank you. And before we really continue, I just wanted to hold space because, as we know, the world around us is always evolving and always ever turbulent, especially right now in the Caribbean, especially with communities and our family living in Haiti. I am also a Haitian Black trans woman, and knowing that there are so many of our people still being discovered, their bodies still being taken out of rubble in this moment. So I just wanted to just really hold space and acknowledge that even in this moment, we are still fighting for our lives, still fighting for justice, still fighting for black people to be free. And yet there are still people all around the world still fighting and fighting and fighting. So I just wanted to hold space and to give reverence to our community and our loved ones overseas. Thank you. This space was really created because after a year of protests, it was so apparent that there was a problem. And to really name it, that there was a state of emergency, still a state of emergency. Black trans people, last year, over 60 deaths of our beautiful siblings, literally meaning a death a week that we had to mourn. And it felt like our community, it felt like black dignitaries, people that we look up to, did not say their names. Even when we went to the March on Washington, it was so upsetting to be there and to hear families cry out for help, for support, yet no one reached out to the members of the trans community, and that felt painful. It felt not only that we were being erased, but that we were not celebrated, as if somehow our blackness was different because of our transness. And in reality, it's what is our magic, that we are black, we're trans, we're powerful, we're leaders, we're thinkers, we're artists, we're leaders, most importantly. And so I just really wanted to say thank you all again. And it is not often that we get to hold space, to celebrate, to express our rage against anti-blackness, anti-transness. So we are taking that space today and always. So I just wanted to again say thank you to everyone that is here. Thank you to the family, the Stonewall protest, most importantly, not only marching, but truly changing and transforming ourselves. That is a gift that I can never rethink. Thank you all. And to begin with the panel, I always just, like to keep it spicy and saucy, but I just wanted to go around and ask everybody, just a little warm up, because we don't really get to know how everyone's living, what is it given. But the first question really is, what is your favorite condiment? And mine used to be the Polynesia from whom we shall not mention. But their chicken is still good, but we don't support them. But my new favorite condiment, oh my God, don't come, the barbecue sauce from McDonald's. That is still, okay, look, that's for me. We could pass it. Tati, you want to start, sister? Okay.
I'm a big girl.
Love that.
What kind of is? With almost everything I eat, I like to dip my burger in everything. I'm getting hungry right now. Mind you, and I just had me a burger. That's what got me here late.
Oh, okay.
I love when, I used to hate mustard, but when someone decided to make some mustard and barbecue sauce together, oh my God, I dip that on everything. I like to marinate my chicken and grill it. Oh yes, oh yes.
Oh Lord, okay. I feel like I have to be authentic in this moment. And I also feel really bad because we're talking about Black trans liberation, but I love mayo, y'all.
Amen to mayo.
Ever since I was a kid with those those little sandwiches you make with the little rinky-dink ham or whatever, I had to have mayo on both slices. And also mayo can mix with so many other things to make aiolis and other shit, so I like mayo.
I'm mad because she took mine. I would also go with mayo. And I grew up in New York. I grew up in New York City, so we like all the condiments. I'm a big sandwich person. I'm into hoagies, so I like horseradish. I like spicy mustard. But I'm gonna stop right there because now I'm getting hungry.
Mayo. I love when you eat a sandwich and you have a little dot. Sloppy sandwich, yes.
Yeah, no. That's why they all sitting on that side together. Even though I'm from the Bronx, but I love me some Zax sauce from the South. Honey, when I tell you, my mom went down to the South and my best friend, they both brought back 10 Zax sauces for me. So I got about 20 now in my kitchen. If you haven't had Zax sauce and been to Zaxby's, please put it on your list of places to go because it's fast food, but it gives you fresh. You know, there's something about Southern fast food that's just very different than up here. No shade, but it'll be Zax sauce for sure.
All right, well, I can't say mayo because B-Hawk will shame me. But
Judgment-free zone. I'm just saying, it's you
So-
know, it's a little anti-black.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go probably with the sweet and sour sauce. Yeah, your sweet and sour from Mickey D's.
I was actually mad they didn't give me that on my McDonald's order, but I came here.
They say you have somewhere to go.
Well, if you've ever been to my house, and some of these girls have, my condiment shelf is 2 shelves, and it pulls out maybe this long out. But my garlic sauce is my marinade for my chicken, my tostones, my fried fish. It is the thing you have. It's sort of like sofrito. You put it on everything.
Okay, thank you. Yes. All right now. So we have definitely activated.
Sorry,
this-
I just have to say, Cayenne is the best soul food cook ever. So I went to her house and I had the best plate I've ever had in my life, and I tasted that garlic sauce and it was phenomenal. I just had to say that.
Okay. We got a testimonial up in here. The garlic sauce. Yes, Lord. So we're gonna go ahead and start. So we're just gonna go start. And truly, this is a freestyle conversation. I remember during the pandemic, I was able to watch conversations from our amazing transcestors and our ancestors, and in particular, a conversation between James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni. And I was like, my God, like craving that, right? Like, what is our version of that? And not ours isn't, but like, because we're black and powerful, queer, you know, all that, revolutionaries. But what does that conversation look like now in 2021? And so truly, this is just a start to that, because as we know, we could talk, and there's many topics and many things to really unpack, but truly this is just a start of a conversation that will truly be ever ongoing. But to start us off, I would love to ask Tatiana, because, you know, oh, yes ma'am, we're coming right to you. You know, we have had so many conversations, but truly I just wanted your outlook about family and what it means to love on someone and to love and care for someone when they're very different from you, when their beliefs are different from you, and you have to love them because of who they are and not just to tolerate them like we're told, right? Well, you know, well, they're black, so they're good. Well, you know, that's my cousin, so, you know, he acts a little funny, but it's not about being funny. It's about celebrating that young person. So I would love for you to share a little bit.
So I think I heard 2 questions in there.
Too.
The first one was how this conversation looks like now for our generation. And first thing I want to say is that I'm not your average organizer at all. I am a human being. I have feelings too. I have a heart, and I get hurt, and sometimes I react on that anger as well. That anger sometimes makes me react in a way that maybe I shouldn't have. But like I said, I'm a human being too. So again, I'm not your average organizer. That's answer number 1.
Yeah, okay.
As far as love, family, I feel that love is honestly giving someone the opportunity of taking advantage of you, but trusting them not to. That's deep, right? Because when we allow someone in as a family member, we love that person. We cater to that person. We accept that person for who they are. And we we expect for that person not to stab us in the back, not to do us any harm. And sometimes that falls far from the apple tree in our community. And it's sad. One thing I can say about the Stonewall protest was that meeting you has been, honestly, like, you're my sister. Like, we talk, we conversate, we connect, we literally see eye to eye. And that's family to me. I don't want to get emotional, you know, I always cry, Jesus, but let me just say this and pass it over before I start tearing up. I never had a family, a LGBTQ family. I was lucky to have the mother and father and the brothers and sisters that I have today. They never turned their back on me, and those were my family. So coming out into the community, I was the mother, pretty much. I was the one catering to the people that I seen that didn't have a family and whatnot, and I didn't get that, right? So now that I'm 39, literally, literally, you are part of my family, and that's on fleek, and that's forever, and that's on period. I love you, sister, and you're my family. That's family.
Thank you. Thank you, Tati. Thank you. Ms. Raquel, so a question that I had is, as you know, there have been a lot of discussions around racial justice, social justice, but in this current climate, do you feel that the proximity to privilege oftentimes can obscure the path towards liberation?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think two things that come to mind for me are, I think we continuously forget that we all are both oppressed and privileged at the same time in some capacity. Like, we talk so much about binaries, but we also think in this binary way about privilege and oppression. And that's not really how it is. It's really more of a spectrum. And I think that that can lock us out of understanding, not necessarily our oppressors, like let them figure that shit out, but understanding each other within a similar oppressed space, right? So when you think about conversations within the Black community around what it means to be a Black trans person in comparison to a Black cis person, right? Or a Black trans woman and a Black cis woman, or even, you know, the muddled kind of conversations that we have around being non-binary or being in a binary space, right? So I definitely think we got to get more nuance on that. And then I think the other thing too is, for so many of us, there is such a desire for validation. And so that's one of the biggest obstacles in this visibility era, is how do we do what we need to do on a personal level, accomplish what we want to accomplish to be fulfilled on a personal level, and also accomplish the things that we know need to happen on a collective level without letting that desire for validation get in the way. And that is difficult. You know, we all have egos. We all, you know, want it stroked at some point. And we got to be able to kind of stretch the muscle to keep that in check.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's amazing. Brother Marquis, you know, oftentimes I feel there's a lot of conversation about masculinity and about image and perception, and how softness or femophobia often is something that doesn't coexist with that. So really just a question about, how do you define masculinity, and are there layers to it?
How do I define masculinity, and are there layers to it? For myself personally, I don't. At 40, I don't. There's no need to identify masculinity because it's who I am. It's what I designed it to be. It's whatever I need it to be in that moment. And masculinity can be soft. It can be forgiving. It can be loving. It could be kind. It could be a kiki. It could be whatever you know what I mean? Like, it could be whatever I want it to be. And I acknowledge that as a human being, there are so many layers to like who I am as a person, and it's okay for me to show up fully. I don't have to pick, right? Like this. Even the idea of like what that means. So masculinity is very binary the way society examines it or expects it, you know, to just show up. That's not something that I'm interested in. So for me, I'm very interested in always kind of like unpacking that and checking myself and going, okay, wait, yes, I'm a transmasculine person. And I use the language very loosely because I think it's very aesthetic. People will read me based on what they're seeing and say, oh, he's masculine. Why? Because I have a beard. You know what I mean? I just spent like 2 hours prepping my mug before I came here. What you mean? Like men don't do that too, right? Like, you know, for me, I just feel like masculinity it's all of the things. It's all of what I need it to be for me.
Thank you. Thank you for that offering. Sister Gia, hi, beauty. I really wanted to ask you about what it means for stigma in our community, and stigma truly meaning like a multitude of things, how we're perceived, the things that we aren't truly able to share with people, and also that stigma also can cause us harm. So just your perspective about stigma.
So stigma for me, it follows you. You know what I mean? It can really be something that, you know, attacks you while you're sitting by yourself, or when you're in a space like this one where you feel like you should be understood, but you're not understood because we are all individuals. Stigma is something that must be challenged. It must be challenged because, and we must be open about having conversations about how we kind of process stigma and how it can affect the community and the collective group at hand. And like, I'm very honest, I'm open about how I feel about things. I don't care if it gets me in trouble because I'm a human being like Tati, and I need to unlearn my shit too. And the way that we do that is by sharing it, right? So like, that's why I love a loving community, like a community that's not afraid to challenge me and everyone in it, and really make me a better person. And that starts with unlearning the stuff that I taught, that I learned, taught and learned growing up, walking down the street and switching my hips because I wanted to be like the girls in the Catholic school skirts, and my mother smacked me in my head, right? Because she didn't want me to switch my hips. I had to unlearn that fear and that hatred that I developed for like skirts because it was associated with violence to me, right? And now like I love to wear skirts and I love to walk down the street and switch my hips, and I feel empowered in doing that. So it's a communal conversation, and it's something that we must continue to challenge.
Thank you, Sister Gia. That's beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to shift it over sides to Queen Miss Cayenne. And the question is about how do we begin to imagine and potentially reimagine what trans wellness and healthcare looks like, especially for a lot of our community that may be surviving or navigating status, may be trying to navigate unhouselessness, or like a multitude of things. And there are sometimes intersections where we overlap many. So the question really is about how do we begin to imagine or reimagine trans healthcare and wellness?
Being positively black and trans, I had to believe in myself. When everybody said I could not do it, you will not be anything, you ain't gonna be nothing but a tranny, I had to fight. When my own family said I wouldn't live till 25, I had to fight. This belief I got in believing in myself led me here. It led me to opening up housing. It's leading me into building a healthcare facility, because if it ain't raised or if it ain't grown or processed by a black trans woman, we will never get the quality of care we deserve. We will never be in the place where we need to work. I'm not a racist motherfucker. I got a family full of everybody. I'm a rainbow myself, bitch.
Yes.
But reflections of us. Yeah, Housing Works is cute. It's owned by a white man. GMHC is cute. It's owned by a white person. Glitz is owned by a black trans woman. This healthcare facility will have people of color up in it first, because we are doctors, lawyers, scientists. We are the very people that should be paid for our experiences in life. And society has just found a way to keep us back, for us not to be in these places. But as black people, as black trans people, as people of experience and power, we have the right to create and design in our best knowledge, and that is us. We are the equity and power that we need in this world, and the world needs to see it.
Yes, ma'am, and they will see it. Oh, they already got baby 2020. Okay, clear. Brother Devin, I wanted to ask you, you know, a lot of the cases of violence that we hear often involve gun violence. And I just wanted to get your insight about what does that mean, like realistically? If we were to take away all weapons or guns, do we feel that trans people would still be under attack?
The short answer is yes. I absolutely think that black trans people would still be under attack if the guns were to, you know, be gone tomorrow, because the problem is not guns. The problem is white supremacy. The problem is cis hetero patriarchy. And these white people have been attacking us, colonize us, people who, you know, don't respect or validate gender variant people, black people, people of color. You know, they have a problem with us. And guns are not the only thing that they're using to kill us, right? And so a gun is a tool, and you know, when a tool can be used for different things and is used for different things depending on whose hand it is, a gun can also be used as a form of protection. If anything, I think like a lot of these gun ranges today, you know, they're operated by military, police forces, but there is no safe space for black trans people to be able to actually learn about gun safety and community protection, community care. We talk about, I'm an abolitionist, and so I'm a strong believer in, you know, abolish the police. And I don't want them in our communities, but in that, like, we talk about not having police, then we also have to talk about what it is to keep each other safe and protect, you know, our own communities and ourselves and our loved ones from violence. And so there's a larger conversation and a continuous conversation that needs to be had. I think that it's not the guns that's the problem. It's a society and the norms that have been developed around just what safety and care and wellness and protection for black trans people looks like.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Okay. Writing some notes. Thank you, sibling. B-Hawk, I wanted to ask you about, as we know that there is a need for radical representation. However, how do we operate where it doesn't feel like we're being placated, where it doesn't feel like we're being used, where our image, again, is still being held even against our own will? The carrot is still dangling in front of us. And is that true representation? And is it sustainable? A few questions there, but truly just however way the answer manifests.
We love a multi-layered question. But it really is when it comes to representation, right? It's way more than one experience, especially when it comes to black, queer, and trans people, especially from someone who is on the streets, you know, protesting, but is also in entertainment, battling that and making sure that not just I'm seen and heard, but all of us are seen and heard in many different ways. And that's why I'm just so honored to be on this panel, because we're all so very different as black, trans, and queer people. Like ages, you know, body types, different boroughs are here, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's amazing to see that. So, you know, shout out to you, girl. You get a little bit of every flavor, and there's so much more. There's so much more from us that we can bring into the pot. I still go through a lot, and I know a lot of black, queer, and trans people still go through a lot when it comes to representation in the entertainment world, especially because you just feel like you constantly have to play a game, you know? And that game is with white supremacy. because it just takes over everything. It's in every fucking corner, excuse my language, sorry. But it's everywhere. No matter where you go, it's everywhere. And I think that's why spaces like this are important. And I didn't realize this until a little bit later on, when I started going to spaces just for Black, queer, and trans people and how important that was. I went one day to some event and I was like, but what about my white friends? I can't bring my white friends? No.
Ew.
And that's exactly what I was told.
Respectfully.
No. And it didn't click to me. It didn't click to me because I didn't see myself in Black spaces. I didn't see that representation in the Black spaces I went, so I went to spaces where I saw some sort of experience that was similar, but something wasn't clicking still. No shade to white, trans, and queer people, but our experiences are very different. They're very different. The representation is very different. So it was that moment when I went to a space in Brooklyn. I forgot what space it was, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see people that looked like me, people that sounded like me, people that shared the same experience as me. Just like when I was on Pose, that was something I've never experienced before in my entire life. And I was just like, my mind was blown. So we're getting there, but we still have a long way to go. And I just want people in this room and everyone that's outside of this room to know that your voice matters and to speak up. Speak up when you see something. If you want to say something, now that Pose is over, no shade to Pose, but there was a lot of issues when it comes to representation still on that show. When it comes to Black, trans, and queer bodies, we didn't see not many or at all any sort of Black, trans, mass folk or men in any sort of leading role. And if they were there, they were in the back. That used to piss me off. You know what I'm saying? And then there's Black, trans, and queer, and disabled folk. Where are they? So I'm thinking about that as someone with privilege, because everyone still has a little bit of privilege in them, to help out for the people in the back seat. Push them up, let them be seen as well. Sometimes you may have to step out the way so they can be seen as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Look, we tell the people on the restaurant tours, it is time for you to get up so someone else can have a seat. Right? Because whiteness will take up so much space. They will gap, honey. And it's like, actually, we need more room. I wanted to ask this next question to you, Raquel, about power. And power is something that is so strong. It is so attractive. It is so desirable. But do we feel that power can be misused? And thinking about leaders and folks with access, folks in positions of power, right? POP. When it's misused, are there ways for us to regain the power, for us to take our power back? Because I think a lot of us are feeling like, well, truly we're in a pandemic and things are about to open up, the world will get vaccinated, but is there power in that? Have we actually done the thing that we said we were going to do? Is this country on its way to healing? Probably not. So this is a very multi-layered question, but power.
Yeah, I think power is very complicated. I think it also can be different, embodied differently within different people. When I think about power, I think the two main categories that come up for me are that kind of external power that's the state, right? Or those systems of oppression that still have such a strong hold on us, white supremacy, cis heteropatriarchy, capitalism, all these different things. And then there's an innate power. I think it is a tough argument to make for most of us, but I think that innate power is the most powerful, because that is what can propel us to shift and to change. That is where the organizing comes from, right? That's the people power. That's how we come together thread our stories into this larger tapestry that can hopefully kind of uproot a lot of what has been an oppressive power on us. So yeah, I mean, I think power is complicated. I hear a lot of things in this question. I think what I'm also hearing is like, you know, should we have faith in power as it exists, particularly externally, right? And should we have faith in the government as it stands in the United States or wherever you are? Should we have faith in America as this project, right? I don't know. You know, I mean, I think everyone comes to their own conclusions about how they navigate struggle. I think for a lot of people, it is about figuring out how we can accept the project as it is and transform it to be what we need it to be. And then for a lot of other folks, and I think a lot of folks in this room, it's beyond transformable, right? So we need something absolutely new. And I know that this is difficult, right? It's that kind of quintessential like abolition versus reform question around anything, right? Just as like a modality of thinking about the rest of the world. But I don't know that there is like a pure, easy answer, right? I think it is gonna take all of us coming together and figuring out where these puzzle pieces fit together. And we need some of those reform folks, maybe not all of them, maybe not a lot of them,
Not a
right?
lot of them.
But we need some of them because they do have something that they can share in terms of insight, I think, and in a lot of conversations, right? And this isn't just limited to the prison industrial complex conversation, right? Because you can abolish a lot of institutions. You know, there are a lot of institutions that we probably do need to abolish, right? And I do believe need to be abolished. But I think we've got to figure out how we fit those puzzle pieces together, because what we're doing now, the biting each other, right, the stabbing each other is not helping, and it's not working, right? And we've got to figure out how we can have these conversations, how we can build these solutions without completely icing out people who are actually like on our side, right? I think that's what's difficult when we talk about power. It's like figuring out who is actually on our side, who actually believes in empathy, authenticity, vulnerability, who actually can acknowledge what the actual enemy is and what it isn't. That's difficult. I mean, that's the real organizing work, and I mean, there's no easy solution for it.
Thank you, Raquel. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that one really resonates with me a lot, because I think so many of us are in that position right now. We're like looking out and seeing that there are many options on the horizon. However, if we don't trust, if there's no true integrity or a pathway towards that, it's not going to happen. We can all in this room say that the police, and this is just, you know, the police aren't helpful in communities, just based off of history, based off of the legacy, right, of what the police represent. But ultimately, if someone were to take your pocketbook, or if someone were to cause you harm, where do we go? And that question comes up a lot. I think that is part of a lot of the conversation about, well, we can't, for example, just abolish or get rid of the police, because when there's trouble, what do we do? And I think for me, I'm like, well, they are part of that trouble. You know, they, I feel, are prohibitors and conduits of that trouble. But, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, Black trans people know that probably more acutely than most, right? As like, there is kind of this very basic conversation around abolition that's happening that doesn't factor in the fact that the people that we would need to show up for us do not have that healthy conscience that they need to see us empathetically, right? to see us as one and the same, to see us humanely. And so what do we do then, right? So exactly like you said, I think it's very complex, and we got to continue to have these conversations and have them in a nuanced way.
Agreed.
Where we're all at the table, right? Like, it's not just Black cishet people talking about what abolition means. It's Black, queer, and trans people leading those conversations.
Agreed. Thank you. Yes. Gia, I wanted to ask you, because I feel in so many places, right, there is this need now, the two words that I am grappling with, intersectionality and diversity. But oftentimes I feel like we have conversations with a lot of community members, and there's a lot of harm that comes in those moments. And I think it's like, well, yes, harm reduction is real, but is it truly intersectional and diverse when you're bringing someone in, there has not been true care and respect for you asking someone to come into any space, that they're being cared for, that they themselves are being seen in that space as well?
Well, for me, I was having this conversation last week around how do we feel welcomed? Well, how do I feel welcomed? And Black cis-het spaces that have historically traumatized me, and that kind of get upset when I speak about my trauma and my fear, and how do I not feel like I'm now being outcasted, and how do I hold you accountable but then still feel like I belong, right? Do I belong? Do I belong? Am literally am I Black like you? The question you asked earlier, because evidently not. Clearly, I'm not gonna sell myself short, because we truly don't look at these issues and the violence that we face through an intersectional lens. We can't. You can't. And what does you showing up look like when I am fearful of being my full self in a space with you, because people like you have always made me dim my light, or exposed or inflicted violence against me because I just wasn't interested in being around you. And because I'm trans, I'm supposed to be, right? And that's the question I ask myself all the time, how do I always commend Queen, particularly for showing up during the protests for a lot of these people that, quite frankly, and I don't think so, like you said, the March on Washington, they didn't include us in the conversation. They would not show up for us. They clearly don't show up for us, right? They invite us to their movements now for inclusion purposes, but and just to perform or to say a little word, but are they really showing up for us, right? Are they showing up to do the work? And I don't think so. So it's just a question that I'm asking myself. Do I belong? And I think that the power that I have reclaimed is that I know I'm Black, my sisters, we know we're Black, and I'm going to love the nuances of my Blackness, and I'm going to continue to fight for my liberation. And my liberation will not include you in it. I'm sorry. It will not include you, because the people, you haven't showed an interest in walking the line with me and my struggle and creating an equitable world for someone like me, and understanding my plight in this world as a human being. So I will be steadfast in continuing to fight this fight for Black trans women and Black trans people, and I'm divorcing. I'm not thinking about I have to remove myself from that, because it causes you depression. It causes that stigma that you asked me. like the stigma, like, do I belong? Why doesn't my family accept me? Like, you know, like these are the intersectional questions. Like you understand, growing up, you understood, we're taught about the experiences of black people in this world, but that's not how I experience the world. I experience it a little different. Why can't you understand that, like, when I walk these streets, I'm not safe? How come you haven't caught me in a week, but then you expect me to be, which I do understand, of course, because I'm a learned person, but of like this experience of black people in the world, I experienced that too, right? So I think it's just a nuanced conversation that like black trans people, we are going to continue to tell our stories, and like, fuck the people who are not listening. Like, we're gonna do it.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, sister, because that was real, honest. And I think a lot of times I will say this, I mean, it's so funny that you bring up about parents not loving you. It's like, I think a lot of us can just, some of us do have amazing relationships with our parents, and I think that is a triumph, that we get to see that we are seeing young, beautiful, non-binary, gender non-conforming young people who have parents like Dwayne Reed and Gabrielle Union who are like supporting them, who are empowering them to be whoever they will become. It doesn't have to be defined right now. It doesn't need to be defined by anybody. It's who you are. And so that resonates, but I also feel like it's an ongoing thing because I'll be honest, I think for me, I'm in a space where it's like, I still love my family. I have not spoken to them in about 4 years. I have not seen my sister's kids. I haven't even seen my nieces or my nephews, and part of that is because I'm sure, they think I'm gonna bring gay to Florida, but it's given, no honey, gay's there, trans is there, but it's still, it's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing. The idea of belonging and having to prove it, having to justify it. I'm black. I'm a woman. Am I not a woman? Am I not your sister? Am I not your child? Am I not deserving of the love? Were these siblings not deserving of love? That is a thing that I think is hard because I still love them. If anyone called me in Florida and said, my brother is in need, I'm jumping down because I still love him. But would he jump up to New York if I were in a situation? And I think that is a painful thing to reconcile. Before we continue, I just wanted to, we're gonna pivot, Ms. Cayenne, I wanted to ask you because I know that you are a phenomenal woman, that you have come leaps and bounds, but do you feel that forgiveness is something that is necessary for liberation?
I had to forgive myself in order to be on this journey, in order to forgive my mother, my father, my brother, my sisters. I had to forgive myself. And once I forgave myself, I was able to let go of the drugs that held me back, the people that were in my life that were no good that held me back, my family that was standing in the way of a black trans woman trying to be trans that held me back. That self-forgiveness allows you to forgive the assholes in the world. We're always gonna have them. But it's that self-forgiveness that pushes you, that thrives. You may not fuck with these, excuse me, y'all. You may not mess with these people ever again in your life. You don't have to. You forgive them by just leaving them alone. There's a young woman in the movement that's a horrible young woman. I won't say her name, we all know. But this young woman is a beast. She didn't forgive herself. There's some hate there that generates past her melanoma that is slightly waffly, but understand there is a hate there that makes this young woman come after women like us because there's something wrong in that spirit. That self-forgiveness allows us to do this work without caring a flying fig. And that forgiveness will allow us to look better. I'm 55 now.
Okay, yes.
It's
Sickening.
letting go of that hate. It's letting go of that thing that held you back. It's forgiving me for you being an asshole you was.
Message. Thank you. I just want to pose a question to our amazing panelists about liberation. And, I think a lot of growing up, we hear, I dream for freedom. In particular, Dr. King dreaming of a world where his children would be free, where they would be able to have the same outlooks and same potential as young white children. But I'll be honest, I do not dream of labor, of having to do the work for liberation. I'll be very honest. That's not my dream. I don't want to be put where I don't belong. I dream of power. I dream of love, of a radical love. But I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, if I put it. Is it something that you think is going to happen?
Woo.
That was for the
I'll
panel.
go first.
Okay.
I feel like I share the same dream as my ancestors. Their dream was for moments like this to happen. So I believe that my dreams will come true. And those dreams include inclusion, a multitude of representation across the spectrum for Black, queer, and trans people, wealth, power, slayage, okay, across the board. Yeah, I dream of just overall happiness and respect, not from others, but for the bodies and souls of the future. To know that they are worthy of living on this earth. They are royals across the board. They are precious stones. They are everything. No matter what little corner of white supremacy is left, because it will be there, I'm sure.
It's a pesky cockroach.
Okay. We're going to keep it real. It'll be around. But I hope it's more of a minute situation going on. So.
For a moment like this. Oh God. So the answer, do I think it can happen? Yes. Is it gonna happen now? No. Is it gonna happen 10 decades from now? Probably not so. But in the future, it might, right? If we all stick together and teach with love and lead with love. And it all starts by teaching our children, right? So I had the privilege to see a picture that you presented me with where there was children here actually looking at our visual. And that's where it starts, teaching our young generation, right? Because it becomes problemsome even for the cisgender community, right? To be in school and you see a transgender person in your class, and now you're kind of like, your focus is off, right? You're not even listening to what the teacher's saying, because now you want to understand, like, why is Billy calling himself Bianca today? And why is Billy got on a wig today, right? But if we all start teaching our children and start teaching our parents that I remember when I started, and this was like years ago when I started studying, there was 7 chromosomes back then, right? And I'm sure that now scientists have found probably 3 more. And if we teach our children, that there's not just 2 chromosomes, man and woman, that there's plenty of there out there, and we teach the differences within who we are, and teach them that we all should be respected according to who we want to be, then the world will be a better place, right? It'll be easier for someone to just sit in a class and focus on what the teacher's teaching and not worry about what Billy is wearing today or what Billy wants to be called today. So it starts with education, and it starts with teaching our young generation and our parents. All cisgender women have the power to help us change the world by speaking to our kids and telling our children that sleeping with a transgender woman does not make them less of a man.
Gosh.
All right now.
Yeah, I would I would love to on this. So the question being, do I believe that Black trans liberation is possible, right? And absolutely, I think that Black trans liberation is possible. I think that I think that decolonization is possible and necessary to Black trans liberation. So definitely unlearning the cis hetero patriarchy in which that we've been conditioned. I believe that, I believe in carrying out a legacy of Black radical tradition, which I believe in that we need Black autonomous spaces is what's gonna bring us to Black trans liberation. When we talk about power, I really wanna emphasize like the need for building power for and not power over, and I think that is really the real difference. And so that is what I believe, and I continue to believe in us building spaces where we get to choose, how we get to exist, where we get to exist, like who is running our healthcare facilities, who are we seeing reflected in our media. Like, we have the power to build a sanctuary for ourselves, and we have the power as Black folks to unlearn all of these things which have continuously harmed us and our communities, right? Because transphobia harms cis people, right? And anti-Blackness harms us all, right? Because there is no corner of this world where Black people do not exist. And I really think that we just need to get back to the beginning. And so I strongly believe in Black trans liberation, and I do think that it will require us to study and remember our ancestors and their legacy and the power they hold and the values of communal living in which that they have taught us, because capitalism is a very new invention in human society, and Black trans liberation and the fall of capitalism go hand in hand. So I would just name that.
So I definitely believe in Black trans liberation. Saturday I had a picnic for a community. On Sunday, I took the girls from Pittsburgh, me, Queen, my biological mother, and my brother and my sister-in-law out to City Island. Not only was this a powerful thing to do, but the young Black trans women from Pittsburgh had never seen excellence, had never been or sat at that table to enjoy the regalness of a mom that was there for her Black trans daughter. That this community, when I invite Queen and definitely Gia over, that love of a Sunday dinner, that is liberating. Having your sisters to have the real conversations about how white people have fucked us over for life. Those are real conversations. There was a young woman that wasn't white, that wasn't Black, that was sitting at the table, and the conversation was a little off because she wasn't in it. And I said, Becky, are you gonna be going to college? And she looked at me and I said, the answer is yes. Because them other two Black girls in college, they're going to school. And I need that liberation. I need every one of us to go to school, to have an education. And like you said, teaching a parent, teach these kids, these young men. If you could be an assistant in a man's life and let them know that you are safe, you are healing, do it. Because that love and respect, he's going to pass it on to his friends. And that's liberating us and our lives. It's helping us live the next day.
Oh, geez, Miss Cayenne. Honey child. All of that. So a couple of words are coming to my mind. They're all like, for whatever reason, start with an E. But empathy comes to mind. And I think with that education piece, right, it's like, we have to radically restructure our society to see the power of empathy and see the power of teaching people, giving people opportunities to stretch that muscle to be empathetic. Because I don't think that we can shift any of this and get to the Black trans liberation that we want to see without seeing the power and empathy. Because I don't give a fuck if you understand what the latest terminology is, or you know the ins and outs of transgender studies and theory. Like, if you at least have a resolve to respect other people and see them fully, then that's the starting point that we can do something with, right? But if you don't even have that, we're doomed, right? And so many people in our society don't have that. I mean, how many times we see a post on social media, on TikTok, whatever, somebody joking about abusing their children if they are queer or trans, or not even those things, but just like something that's considered atypical. Like, that's fucked up, y'all. And it's because we have a society that is not structured around seeing the power of empathy, in my opinion. So that's one thing. I think the enlightenment piece is so key, us understanding that there's always more to learn, that there's always more experiences beyond our own that we can tap into and gain some insight from. I think having an understanding around expansiveness, that there's also more than just the contours of these identities that we have now. So if we're talking about Black trans liberation, we gotta have humility around the ways that we describe ourselves now, because the next generations are probably not gonna use those words, right? And so how are we humble in the ways that we need to be to leave that space for them to play and figure out themselves on their own terms? So those are the things that come to my mind when I think about Black trans liberation, and I do believe it's possible.
Yeah, I too believe it's possible, and your earrings are absolutely stunning. I just caught my eye. I was looking at them the whole time we were speaking, but I heard what you said too. But you know what? When I was 15 years old, I met a young person at my high school, and we were like very different, and we like were literally exploring the world. She was teaching me the things she knew about survival. I was teaching her the things I knew about survival. And I didn't know at that time, before that time, like I'd never really met someone who was like me fully. That like I always wanted to be in space with someone who was afraid, like I was afraid, who wanted to wear the things that I wanted to wear, who wanted to experience life the way I wanted to experience life, and so much more in their own way. And 15 years later, I still have that person in my life. That person is one of, if not the most important person in my life, because of the consistency. And I am a very difficult person, I must say. And in 15 years, we haven't had one argument. It was destiny that I met them. And it was our Black transness is what kept us together. I truly believe that. But I've had the opportunity to expand those relationships and meet people like Queen, who I also have really full relationships with. So much beauty, so much joy, so much happiness. As I said, I'm not an easy person to deal with, and Queen could deal with me. And she's not an easy person either, and I could deal with her. But these are relationships. Like when I was little, I remember like my brothers didn't want to introduce me to their friends, right? I remember just a lot of shit like that. But then I meet people who like truly love me and uplift me, and that truly allows me to be the person I am, right? I never knew in my wildest dreams as a child that like people would think I was beautiful. Like I didn't think so. I dreamed, I hoped, I wished, I imagined, but I didn't think so. And I didn't know I would be able to feel that way one day. And today I do. So because of that progress, because of me meeting people who are like me, even at this table, some of the people that I don't know, like to have the opportunity to go to Cayenne's house and for her to love on me, tell me old stories, cook a meal, like that's revolutionary. That is something that I never thought I would be able to do. And I'm so happy that we are in the position to do that. And she taught me, now I gotta get in the kitchen to do it for the younger y'all don't want me in the kitchen. But no, but what I have to do is my way is, which I do, but do it more is do my part. You know what I mean? To create that space. And that is where the liberation lies. And I think that everyone on this panel and a lot of us in this room are contributing to that liberation. So thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll make it fast. I mean, that was
Take your time.
No. That was quite honestly. I think everyone here essentially nailed it. And just thinking about what that means to have access to Black trans liberation, I think on a very individual level, you have to understand your own sense of self-agency. And let me be clear as well. Not only do I think that it's possible. First of all, I think that liberation has always existed, but I think so has resistance. You cannot have resistance without liberation, and you cannot have liberation without resistance. So those things inherently will always exist together, right, as opposing sorts of forces. But where do you stand in that? That choice is up to you. Our ancestors always had access to liberation. That's how we got here, right? We're still fighting for it because there's still resistance. So I say all that to say that we can absolutely have it, and this is what we're doing. We're creating that liberation in this moment right now, even while we're sitting at the same time as all of the resistance that's in front of us. The first day that I came to this installation, so I came when it actually opened, within its first couple of minutes of opening. What was so powerful and impactful, and still is because I'm sitting in this space, is that we are literally outnumbered by our dead siblings. I want you to think about that. Literally sitting in the same space. We are in an altar that is both mourning and celebrating. That's real. That's always going to be in front of us. What are we choosing to do to make sure that we don't continue to see these kinds of spaces? Because quite honestly, while it is very beautiful and it's powerful and it is fucking impactful, it's scary. It's scary. You know, I hope that we all continue to do whatever it is that we can in our own ways to continue to fight for this liberation that we're talking about, that many of us actually do have access to, no matter how small you believe that scale to be.
Thank you. Before we, ooh, baby, okay. No, I'm just like that just, no, I'm, okay. The Holy, yeah, spirit transference. Before we continue for the next portion, before we end, I know that in this moment that there might be a young queer, trans, little individual who may be navigating identity, sexuality, and might even be feeling like it's better for them to be out of this world than not in it. Me being one of those people at 10. Is there something that you would say to them in this moment? Each of you, and it doesn't have to be, but something, advice, healing, because I feel like I craved that as a child. Someone that I could see that loved me. And I'll be honest, I went to church and thought, oh, maybe it's here. And it was not. And it was advertised as a place to be loved and held. And I looked in all parts of the hymnal. It wasn't in there. It wasn't in the songs. It wasn't in the service. It wasn't in the sermon. If we could give someone a piece of a sermon, Miss Cayenne.
Ooh, I would tell them, you are royalty. You are the chosen. You are yesterday, tomorrow, the end, the alpha, the omega, and I'm here. We are all here. There's an army of sisters waiting to hold you, waiting to hug you, and I adore you.
I would say you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are loved. You deserve to show up as your whole self in every single space, to not let anybody try to minimize your power, try to silence you, try to make you feel small, because you deserve to live largely, and you deserve to be held with kindness and grace and compassion. And there are so many brothers, sisters, siblings out here who are here to do that for you.
This shit ain't easy. Okay. it's so multi-layered. It's not easy. But once you start to truly love on yourself and surround yourself with people that love you authentically, that's when it gets better. You create your own community. You define what community means to you. It's gonna come to you. But you have to take that moment to love, because I'm still taking those moments to love on myself. So I can then go out and be better for the future, be better for the present. So I'm telling the future, wherever you are, take that time. Take those moments to love on yourself and know that you are worthy. You are a precious stone, no matter what anyone says. And start and build your own community and be surrounded by nothing but love. Now, you ain't gonna like everybody. Not everyone gonna like you. But we must respect one another, and people must respect you, period.
So I would say on Saturday, I'm organizing a celebration of Black trans women cookout. As we are centering Black trans women, if they're not trans, I would tell them they are welcome to come, because it is a community event and it will be a space of love, a space of true acceptance, and it will be in a space in the midst of the spaces where we oftentimes feel the most rejected. But we are an example and a living testament that in spite of it all, we will still organize, we will still have community, we have access to love, and I will be facilitating that. And give me your number. I'm gonna make sure you get there. I have an Uber waiting for you. Yeah. And I just want to say that, I might give your number to Devin.
Okay.
If they're a Black trans woman.
Who keeps the girls safe?
Okay. I will also, let them know about the because I feel like that experience is not just an experience a child faces. Some days are hard for me too. I'm like dead serious, Like some days I can have an amazing day where I'm like on a flight and I just did some amazing transformative things, some goals that I never thought I would accomplish, and then I'll sit down and be like, fuck, what's next? Right? Honestly. So I say to those people as well, that's why I decided to have my event, because I wanted to, I'm a mixy girl. I like to be out there, and I wanted to bring community together in a very joyous way. So I also invite you all to the event on Saturday. It's gonna be at Von King Park. Come in the spirit of celebration. Like I said, I'm not an easy person. I don't get along with everyone, but everyone is invited to this event, because this event is not about me. It's about the community, and it's about celebration. So if you have me on social media, the flyer is going around, and please come to the event, and you'll have a good time.
I would say that in this world and in this life, there are going to be a lot of voices that have a lot of opinions and have a lot of things to say And I would say to that young person, make sure that yours is the loudest because it's the only one that matters. You're going to have to wake up to you and go to bed to you every single day. So that relationship that you build between you and you is going to be the most valuable one. Listen to yourself because you know. You know what you need. You know what you don't need. You know what feels good. You know what doesn't feel good. Make sure you take the time out to listen to yourself. Love on you. People in this world are not really ever going to see you unless you see you. They don't know what to present to you until you do. So you better start getting clear about it.
Yeah, it's 2020. Come on, get clear. Thank you.
I'm just letting that dramatic pause simmer, because that was everything. Exactly what Marquis said, like, listen to yourself. I think the first thing I would say to them is that what they're feeling is valid, and it's not, I hope this wouldn't make them feel any worse, but it's not unique, because so many of us have felt that. I think more people than we realize have felt that way, like they didn't know what was up or down or how to keep going. But I think listening to yourself is so important, figuring out what, as Oprah says, what you know to be true for sure. And carving out those spaces that do make you feel free. I'm still kind of stuck on the last question because, maybe liberation doesn't have to be something so far out in the distance, but we can carve out little spaces of liberation every day and figure out what that feels like. Whether it's playing in your mama's makeup, if that is your little bit of liberation at 5 years old, that was mine, then
Yes.
let that be it, right? Just try not to get caught, cause child. But
Okay, or with the bra.
okay, cause it will turn from liberation to oppression in a millisecond. But if that's it, right? Or if it's your moment where you're listening to music and you like lip syncing in the mirror and you that bitch or whoever, like let that be it, right? But listen to those moments where you do feel something that doesn't feel so down, right? Because that could be the pathway to those bigger moments that you feel the freest.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you. All right, take
The
us
last
out.
one.
Take us out. Take us out.
Last but not least.
Okay. Okay, so I'll say a few things. I'll piggyback on what my brother said, Marquis, because if you was a stubborn kid like I was, one thing did not make sense, right? You have to keep beating it in my head for me to listen. So I'll start by saying, only believe half of what you see and nothing that you hear. Trust your confidence. Showing up is half the battle. Stay focused. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know which one you gonna get. Meaning, life ain't easy. We're always gonna struggle. We're always gonna have obstacles. Never give up. Trust in your higher power. Your higher power will not let you drown in a glass of water. Mind over matter.
Life is like a box of chocolate. Life is like a box of chocolate. Okay, that's a new chant. Okay, family, thank you. Truly, 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 thank you all. This has truly been a gift. This is probably historic. We're gonna claim it. This has been such a healing afternoon with you all. I know these conversations are not complete, they're not finished. It doesn't have to be finished, because we're not finished. We're still figuring it out. But truly, I thank you all for today. Thank you all for sharing time in transforming time and space with me. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you. We love you.
Thank you. We're going to take a little group photo, probably. A group photo. Yeah, we'll take a group photo. Okay. Thank you,
Sit and
everybody.
take it.
Okay, it's giving.
in here. Do we have
No, stand it. Oh, seated? Okay, seated, sorry.
Can we sit?
Okay, seated. Well, maybe a couple.